manifestation, the law of attraction. But the law of attraction doesn't work without the law of vibration. So we have to become an energetic match to actually pull that in for the law of attraction to work. So through these steps, I'm going to help you to do that. So when I was writing down these particular steps and, what it really took to manifest and call in the reality that I had on my vision board, it's such a powerful thing because I remember when I first started this work and I first started delving into manifestation, it's such a, simplistic method that we are taught of, ask for what you want, just put it on the wall, visualize it, take action, follow your intuition, and then release and let go. But I was like, what does that actually mean? And year after year of having these pictures on my wall, some things I would manifest, but it wasn't like I manifested it all. But once I understood how energy worked, once I understood how vibration and identity worked, everything changed. And last year, you might have seen it on my Instagram, but I created a reel on there, which you can go check out if you feel called. But on there, it was everything that I had on my vision board came into fruition. And it was like boom, 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 one after the other. And 6 months later, I was creating a new vision board. This is what I desire for you in the space. That is why I've created this event, Elevate, talking about the identity. Because there's so many misconceptions and I want to debunk them. I want to share the truth for you so that you can experience that elevated life in 2025 as well. So the first thing that I did, and one of the process and the steps, was actually in the decision. Now, bear with me because this is actually super important. I remember when I first heard this, I'm like, shush, like, yeah. Tell me more. Tell me more of the juicy stuff. But before we actually get to the juicy stuff, we have to allow ourselves to decide that this year is going to be different. We have to energetically declare that this is a new timeline that we are stepping into, and this is the year that we manifest it all. Because the power of decision making, you can declare, and I want you to do this as well as we are on this call together. Sit there and really embody the declaration that this year is going to be different. No matter what your circumstances, your reality is looking like currently. Because so often we look at what our reality is saying, what we have manifested up until this point, or what we haven't manifested, and we base our desires, we base our decision from that space. But we want to take this deeper. We want to actually allow ourselves to make the decision that no matter what is happening in the external reality, that this year is going to be the year that you manifest it all. That was the first piece for me, was actually declaring that this year is going to be different. And when I started, this time last year, I didn't have the evidence in my reality. I didn't have the money to go on all of those incredible trips. I didn't have the evidence that this year was going to be any different. But instead of playing into that lie, I want to say, because it is a lie, because the truth is that you can have and attract anything that you desire to have and attract. That is the truth. So anything else that tells you otherwise is a lie, right? It's like, oh, no, I can't attract that. Well, wait, hang on a second. According to who? Who told you that you couldn't have what you desired? Who told you that that thing was out of reach? Because when we dig into that and the limitations, and we allow ourselves to rewire these limitations, we step into a whole new frequency. So, like what I was saying before, elevate is a remembrance of who you truly are. We are not becoming someone else. So, a lot of the time with identity shifting is that we feel like, okay, I need to become someone else. So we start to look at, characteristics that other people have, and we say, oh, yeah, I like that. Oh, I like that. That person's successful. Therefore, I need to embody that characteristic and that trait to also be successful. Or with health, right? I need to get up at 5 a.m. every single morning and train, because that is how I'm going to reach the success. And that's why a lot of desires and a lot of vision boards lose their sparkle when it comes to February. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation as we are in January, as we are, really moving towards our vision. A lot of the time they lose sparkle, they lose zest, you lose interest in them because you've set this idealistic version of you, this perfect version of you who has to get up at 5 a.m., never eats cake, never, has a drink, never. And you start embodying these practices and these traits and these characteristics. And then it comes to February and you're like, oh no, I can't keep going with this. This is way too much. I'm going to go back into my comfort zone. And therefore, that vision that we had and that we were so excited by in January, the 1st of January, has lost its sparkle, has lost its zest. And it just becomes that board that we put in the cupboard. But we don't want to experience that. I want you to have this vision and bring it to life. So therefore, the elevated version of you isn't this perfect version, isn't this higher version, isn't this someone that you have to become and it becomes this thing and it's hard to reach. Because the thing is, when we create this perfect version of us and we have all of this list of everything that we need to do, our subconscious looks at that list and it says, whoa, that is a mountain that I need to climb. And I'm not climbing that mountain. That is way too hard. So it gives up and goes back into the old patterns and cycles. That's because we're not actually changing our identity. And we're not actually doing it in the way that is effortless. We're not doing it in the way that is actually remembering who you truly are. Because the thing is, you already have these characteristics and traits of this version of you within you, right? You already have those traits. It's about peeling back the layers. It's about remembering that version of you. And when we do that, and when we can actually be her, him, whoever, when we can actually be them, that is when we effortlessly call in the new experienced. So the elevated version of you is aligned with your vision board and calls it in the effortless way. So I made that decision that this year is going to be completely different. So make this decision within yourself. The next thing that I did was going from a place of need, because a lot of the time we create our vision board from a place of need, of I don't like the reality that I'm currently living in, or I feel like this new elevated reality is going to make me feel a certain way. It's going to make me feel worthy. It is going to make me feel secure. It's going to make me feel wealthy, healthy, whatever it is that you're calling in. So we don't realize it, but we're coming from this place of need. Like, I need you, otherwise I'm not going to feel worthy this year. Like, this happens all of the time. Women coming into my space with their business, right? With their business and having their business up on this pedestal and saying, well, if I don't actually reach this level of success this year, then no, I'm done. Like, I'm not worthy. So we're putting it up on a pedestal, and we're saying that the energy of needing something is very different from the energy of desiring something. So we want to move you from that space of needing it to feel whole, needing it to prove your worth, etc., 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 into a space of I don't need it, but I desire it. Like, I don't need it because I'm already whole. I'm already wealthy. I'm already healthy. But wouldn't it be fun to experience a greater level of wealth, a greater level of health, a greater level of love? So we want to move from that space of needing our desires. So for an example, for me, at this time last year, I didn't realize, but had super needy energy towards wealth coming into my life, because I thought that, okay, well, I need to reach this level of, success and wealth in order to be worthy so that my partner, Josh, will propose to me. And these are all subconscious beliefs, right? And that is why belief work is so powerful and potent. And I'm going to be talking about this in a second. But rewiring beliefs, rewiring limitations to allow yourself to tune in and tap into the energy and the frequency of your desires, that is when everything shifts and changes to give you exactly what you want. And the thing is, I didn't do this on my own, right? I didn't say, okay, well, I'm going to rewire these beliefs on my own, because the thing is, if we consciously desire something, but then we unconsciously have beliefs that are not congruent with our desires, then we are repelling them, because we don't get what we want, we get who we are being. So it's so important to have the awareness around these beliefs. So that is why, I've always put myself into spaces. I've always invested in spaces. I've always had, someone who can have that perspective and look at who I am being. Because if we don't have the awareness, we don't know what we need to rewire, right? So I realized that, it was this neediness energy rather than the desires. So I needed it rather than desiring it. So that was really, really impactful, that I go from the space of needing into a place of desire. So that is where the true self-love work happens. The worthiness work happens. And I hear this all the time of, you are enough, right? This mantra of you are enough. But I want to get you to not just a place of you are enough, because the thing is, you are so much more than just enough. You are incredible. You are amazing. You are beyond incredible. So to just realize that you're enough isn't enough. But it's this true self-love and realizing that and rebuilding that love from within will absolutely change your life, right? But I don't want you to just love yourself more and feel more worthy. I want you to feel worthy and attract the money that you desire. Feel worthy attracts the love that you couldn't even imagine you could experience, right? I want you to feel enough and then experience your whole life change. So we don't want to just feel enough, but we want to come from this space of realizing exactly as you are right now is more than enough. It is incredible. It is impactful. Because when we come from that space of feeling that self-love from within, that is when we can create the new identity from that space, rather than from a space of, I'm not enough as I am right now, so I need to step into this bigger, bolder, greater version of me. Because that is when our desires lose their sparkle by February. Because you're constantly trying to be someone else because you don't feel enough within. You don't feel worthy from in. So we want to start the year knowing, deeply knowing, and this work is so powerful because the ego can make you feel like you are enough. But if we don't feel that internally, then we cannot outrun or lie to energy. That is how powerful it is. So we have to be honest with ourselves of how can we create that self-love from within? How can we love ourselves exactly as we are? And then from that space, we go from needing our desires into desiring our desires, which is completely different energy and frequency. But we don't want to just stop there. A lot of people just stop there and say, okay, well, I desire more, I desire this. But we want to move from desire into having faith. Because with faith, it's again, a completely different vibration. It's like, I have faith that more is already on its way to me. I have faith that I will attract this vision board in 2025, which is beautiful, absolutely. But where I want to get you to And what a pivotal point in my own journey was of moving from faith into knowing that your desires are already done. Because when clients are in my world and they come to me and they say, I don't know how this is happening, but I just have this inner knowing that everything is about to change, that my business is about to blow up. Like their 3D reality is saying something completely different, but they have this inner knowing that it's already done. That is the place that we want to get to, where you have this, without a shadow of a doubt, deep knowing within that your desires are already done. They're already yours. So understanding that, I had to realize that, there was already a version of me that was experiencing, that was living out the desires that I had on the vision board already in a different timeline. So that is why it is so important to know this, because the reason that you desire what it is that you desire is because there's already a version of you who has attracted that particular thing into their life. So it is so important to desire what you desire, not what you think you should desire, not what someone else wants for you, but what your soul is pulling you towards. Because when we allow ourselves to completely, unapologetically ask for what it is that we want, that is when everything shifts, because there's already a version of you in the quantum realm who has achieved, who has manifested that reality. So you will be guided through your intuition when you tap and tune in, become that elevated version of you, that will lead you towards the fastest timeline to attract that. That is why last year it wasn't drawn out over a couple years, but I condensed that time into under 6 months of manifesting it all, because I energetically matched the new reality and I unapologetically asked for what it is that I wanted, even right down to, Josh proposing on a boat. It's like I had a couple of people reach out and, say to me, it's just like, well, that was a bit extravagant, don't you think? And I'm like, no, it was exactly what I desired. And I unapologetically asked for it. And I truly believe that's how we, condense time and attract what it is that we desire, because it's got to be what you desire. Your desires are probably completely different to my desires. But when we reject other people, going after what it is that they desire or having the desires that we desire, we reject it in the way that you desire yours to come through. Like I see this all of the time when people are like, oh, I would never buy a, designer handbag. That is just a waste of money. And it's just like, okay, well, your desire isn't the designer handbag. Maybe it is, but you're just rejecting it. But maybe it's that your desire isn't the designer handbag, but you desire the wealth to put towards something else. So instead of rejecting someone else and what they desire and calling that desire into their reality, allow yourself to be open to receive it in the way that you desire it to come through. So that is just a side note. So again, I energetically matched the new reality. And this is honestly the biggest piece, right? The biggest piece, because the law of attraction doesn't work without the law of vibration. So we have to realize that the money that you desire has a certain vibration and frequency. The health that you desire has a certain vibration and frequency. The whole life that you desire has a certain vibration and frequency. So in order to attract that and call that in, we have to match that. And that comes from within us. It comes from the vibration of who we are currently being. And who we are currently being, I actually wrote this on a story before I came live today. It's not who we are, but it's actually who we think we are, which is our vibration. So it's so powerful. It's such a mic drop moment because it's not the fact that maybe it's you can't speak English properly, or, you feel like you're too old, or it's not the actual age. It's not the inability to speak English properly, but it's your own perception of those perceived flaws, right? You perceive to have these flaws. So it's not actually having the thing you think is a flaw, but it's actually the way that we view ourselves that limits us. So I want to say that again because it's a really, really important note to have. So it's not actually who we are that limits us. It's our perceptions of who we are that limits us. So the vibration and what vibration we are admitting is actually who we think that we are. So for an example, you're, starting out in your business. So it's not the fact that you're starting out in your business that is leading to, slow sales or the money or the clients not coming in. It's the perception that you hold about starting your business. It's like, okay, well, I'm a beginner. I am, not an expert. I have to earn my stripes. I am not successful yet. Can you see the words that I'm using have a certain vibration? They have a certain frequency. And that frequency is what is admitting into the world. And you could consciously desire more clients and more wealth, and you have on your vision board these trips that you're going to take because of the wealth that you're attracting through your business XYZ. Because disclaimer here, this whole live event isn't about just manifesting a one-time lump sum of money, or, just winning the lottery, or, things like that. We want to actually match the new reality by shifting who we are being so that it's not just this one-time thing, but this consistent reality that you get to manifest, right? Because there's a reason when people win the lottery that a lot of the time they end up in worse places because they haven't done the inner work. They haven't matched the identity to that amount of wealth. So they go back to, it's like the rubber band theory. It's like we stretch, but then we come back because it's dysregulating to the nervous system. And the identity who you hold emits a certain frequency, and we want to come back to that identity because it is comfortable, because it is safe to the nervous system. I'm saying safe in quotation marks because the nervous system or your subconscious mind is what deems things safe. So when we attract a whole bunch of money from, say, winning the lottery, the subconscious, there's beliefs in the subconscious, how you view yourself, and also your nervous system that retracts. So you'll sabotage, spend the money, end up in worse situations. So this isn't about winning a lump sum of money or, just a one-time manifestation. I want to show you and teach you that you can shift your entire reality, that you can experience a whole new reality, manifest a whole new reality in 2025, and actually stay in that new reality without sabotaging it. So this is what we are talking about here. So going back to, how you see yourself, when you are starting that new business, for example, if you see yourself of not successful yet, I'm a beginner, that is an identity that we have attached ourselves to. And when we are admitting the frequency and the vibration of I'm not successful yet, what do we manifest? A reality where we are not successful yet. We keep continuously manifesting the reality where you are not successful yet. Powerful. Absolutely powerful. And I want to talk about how being high vibe is not actually what manifests. So, a huge misconception when we talk about elevating our frequency, we talk about elevating our identity. A lot of the time, it gets mixed up in this concept of like, I just have to be high vibe, I just have to be happy 24/7 and think positive thoughts. Otherwise, I'm not going to manifest what it is that I desire. And let me tell you, I have manifested some crazy things into my life when I have not felt my happiest self, right? Because we are always going to experience contrast in our life. We are going to experience the law of polarity, which means that, there's always going to be things that are happening in our life that aren't what we desire to experience. And if that is true, and we cannot bypass the universal laws, then why would we have the belief that you can only manifest what it is that we desire when we are in this high vibe state, when we are happy and positive 24/7? It doesn't make sense because we are always going to experience the highs and the lows of life. So do we want to hold that belief that we have to be happy and high vibe? I know I don't want to, because we're always going to be experience sadness. Like if you look at the fires over in LA and the sadness that is coming through there, and any natural disaster that happens, it's like that is going to create a range of emotions that is going to flow through our body. And if you think that manifesting the life that you desire is going to mean that you will never have an issue or a problem in your life, then we need to actually look at that, because the law of polarity, of contrast, is we're always going to experience opposites of what we desire. So it's who we be in those moments. So really, it's not happiness and being high vibe that manifests and aligns you to this new reality. It's actually the identity that we hold about ourselves. It's actually how we feel about ourselves. And it is so, so, so powerful, because when we realize that it is identity and that the version of us that we desire to be already exists within us. It's about having the awareness of those parts of us and remembering those parts of us and elevating those parts of us that aligns with a new timeline. And you get to do that straight away. You get to be this elevated version of you straight away. So this is what I have done when it came to creating the identity of the six-figure version of me. When I literally had $0 in my bank account, I made the decision to elevate into the six-figure version of me, even though my external circumstances said there was no way that this could happen. I decided to be her. And that is when the money came. I did this again for multiple six figures. And the life. So it's not actually just about the multiple six figures, it's about the life that comes from that. The houses that we decided to invest in, the trips that we decided to take, the private boat proposal, all of those beautiful things. I decided to be her first. And that is when my whole reality shifted because I decided to be, then do, and that is why I had, right? Be, do, have. Rather than, okay, well, I'm going to wait till the six figures comes to then feel worthy and wealthy and go to those open homes and book those flights, etc., etc., etc. I decided to step into her, to have the audacity to be her first. And that is when everything shifted. And now I have elevated into the $1 million identity. And already I like to call it, the signs of land. The signs of land, my beautiful mentor, Kathleen, talks about this all the time, is that the signs of land, meaning that if you imagine yourself being out in the boat in the middle of the ocean and you're following your intuition and, you're embodying this version of you, you don't know exactly how it's all working out behind the scenes, but you have this inner knowing and you're embodying this elevated version of you. And then you see some birds fly past and you're like, oh, there's a sign of land because birds need land, right? And then you might see some smoke come up and you're like, oh, another sign of land. So what this actually means is that, when people say, oh, 111, I've seen angel numbers everywhere today. It's not the angel numbers, but it's our awareness and perception of the angel numbers. So I literally turn everything into a sign of land. Even the other day, Josh and I were shopping at JB Hi-Fi for a mic for my podcast. This was before I decided to actually book the podcast studio. But we were looking through the mic section and Josh said, oh, why don't you get a clip-on mic? I was like, oh yeah, no, I have one of those. And he's like, oh yeah, because you'll need one for when you're speaking on stage because that'll happen soon. And I just smiled to myself because it's not Josh having the awareness that he's said something like that because he knows that's something that's on my vision board. The $1 million identity is speaking on stages. And it's not the awareness that he had around that. He just said it. It just flowed through him. And I'm like, sign of land. Because this is another thing. As we move through and we embody this version of us, and this was an embodiment that I practiced, last year, and I'm always practicing as well, is that when something comes into my awareness, I'm like, oh, sign of land, it's coming, it's happening. Because the thing is, like 95% of the manifestation process happens energetically. So energetically meaning that we can't actually see it with our five senses. So 95% of it is happening behind the scenes where we can't actually see it. So whenever I'm distracted by the 3D and I'm like, oh, I'm looking at the 3D and how it's not working or not happening, I come back to the inner knowing and I look for signs of land. I look for, the angel numbers. I was like, oh, 111 today, it's happening. It's all working out. The universe is conspiring in my favor. Because it's not just a fun thing to do, but when you do this and when you're actually aware of the signs of land and you're turning what someone else could just see as 111 into it's working, it's happening, it's already done. What are you doing? You're speaking it into existence. Your words have so much power. I always say your words cast spells. So are you going to look at your 3D and like, oh, it's not working, it's not happening? Or are you going to use every little sign that is coming in that it is a sign that everything is working out? Because that is how we hold the frequency right up until it manifests. Because things are going to come up. There's going to be things that happen in your life, in your reality, that are screaming at you that things aren't working. And it's your ability to be so unbothered by what is happening in the 3D and instead come back to your inner knowing, come back to the belief that everything is working. That is when everything shifts. So the last thing that I want to talk about here is making decisions and acting from the elevated version of you. So before I do that, I spoke about having the awareness of, who you are currently being. And if these things are, circulating your mind right now of, okay, well, I desire health in 2025, but right now I don't feel like I'm healthy. So I'm giving off the vibration that I'm not healthy. Or I desire more wealth and money, but I'm giving off the vibration of I don't have enough. So this is where the energy really comes to play. So we consciously want something, but our energy is saying something completely different. So just quickly, how to shift that. So I'll give you one example here, because I know this will be a question that comes up. And let me know if you have any questions in the chat box as well. But how to shift that is, okay, if it's wealth that you desire to call in, and it's a certain amount, it's coming back to, okay, why do I feel like I don't have enough? So maybe you're looking at your bank account and you're like, well, I desire 6 figures, but my bank account is saying like literally $10. We have to shift that frequency into already having more than enough. Because if we are continuously vibrating at the frequency of I don't have enough, we will continuously attract and manifest not enough. So we have to come back to that experience of our bank account and realize, and you can use the law of relativity here of saying, hang on a second, I am on YouTube, or I'm watching this on Zoom, or I'm watching this on a replay on a laptop, on a phone. That is wealth right there. Because if you think about it, how many people don't have the ability to be on Zoom, to pay for the subscription to Zoom, or to be on YouTube, to have a device to be able to watch something? So many people. So it's all relative. So you can look at that and be like, wow, I am more than enough. I have more than enough. I have beautiful food in my fridge. I have a phone. I have a laptop. I have clothes in my closet. And it's actually realizing that, hang on a second, I do have more than enough. So if we keep resisting and trying to change into this elevated version of you from this place of feeling like there's not enough, then we're not actually going to shift into that elevated version of us. So we have to change the frequency, change the perception, change the story to then elevate into that version of you. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is acting from the elevated version of you. So the whole premise of, fake it till you make it. It's like you've just got to fake it till you make it, just does not resonate with me at all. Because what are you actually faking? You're not faking anything, because there's already a version of you who is that elevated version of you that exists in this now moment on a different timeline. So really, what I like to call it is that I'm practicing being this version of me until it is just who I be. And when it is just who you be, that is when your whole reality shifts and changes, because you're a vibrational match to it. That's when we become a magnet to the things that we desire, right? But it's not faking it till you make it, because the whole fake it till you make it is actually really not believing it internally. It's actually trying to prove it externally. And your internal world is just mirroring in your external world. So you'll always be in that becoming rather than that being state. So the whole acting from this new identity is the power.